Alrighty folks, in this video we are going to look at how to solve for a missing side of a triangle using trig ratios. We learned earlier how to solve for missing sides using the Pythagorean theorem, and of course that theorem only works for right triangles, and what we're about to do today only works for right triangles. The difference is sometimes when you have two sides, you do not need trig to find the third. The theorem will do that for you. And of course, this is a famous triple. This is the 5, 12, 13. But we're going to look at examples today where we have triangles, and these triangles have a given, we know it's a right triangle, but we have an angle, maybe 37 degrees up there, and we have a side, and we want to know another side. Pythagorean theorem will not work here, because we do not have two sides, and we have to know two sides before we can use that theorem. So let's take a look at this first diagram. It's asking for, if we focus on this angle right here, the side that we're given is the adjacent. So I'll go ahead and label that with an A for adjacent. And the X that we want is the hypotenuse. So that's the first thing you want to do, is just label what you have and what you want. And these two labels will help you determine which of your trig ratios you need to solve for that missing side. Okay? So anytime you work on trig, maybe on your paper, dump out some old hippie caught another hippie tripping on acid. Looks like my pen's about to give out. Made too many videos with it. Okay. Now, immediately, if you notice, we had an A and an H. Cosine has A and H. And when we use trig ratios, we go back to the basic three. We don't use the inverse ratios. We just use these basic ones because of what's on our calculator. So we know we're going to use cosine. So how does that work? Well, before we haven't worked with any angles at all, but today we have our angles. So here's what we know. We know that the cosine of 37 degrees. See, I can type that in and get a decimal. This is a number, okay? And if you don't have the Calculate 84 app or a graphing calculator, then I suggest get that app. It'll really help you. Well, you're going to need it on this assignment. Anyway, the cosine of 37 is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So we're going to do 11 over x. We don't know what that hypotenuse is. And what we're going to do now is solve this one-step equation. And, could I type this in and get the big long decimal? Sure I could, but you don't have to. That's just more writing. But this does represent a number, just for those of you who aren't real sure about that. Let me show you what that looks like in the app. So right now I'm opening up that Calculate 84. And this is what it looks like on the screen. Cosine is right here above the parentheses, and I put in 37, and I'm going to press enter. Now what I don't know is this radians or degrees? Angles can be expressed in two different measurements. So it's kind of like like length can be expressed in meters or yards. The numbers can be different but represent the same thing. So let's check the mode. Check the mode of what you're in. Look. I am in radians, so that is the wrong mode. So make sure you check your mode on your app and on your calculator. So let's do that again. Let's do cosine of 37 again. Alright, you can tell it's a little bit different. Is it enough to make a difference? Absolutely. We've got to make sure we do that. So you can see they're different. Well, I'm not going to write that number down because we don't have to. We'll just type in cosine of 37 when it comes time. Okay? So let's get back to solving this problem. If I'm divided by x in the denominator, I'm going to have to multiply both sides by x to get it out of the denominator. And now what I have is x times the cosine of 37 degrees equals 11. And now I can solve this equation by dividing both sides by cosine of 37. So 11 divided by cosine of 37 gives me 13.773. I'm just for now going to do 1 decimal point. So let's see if that makes sense. Does it make sense for this hypotenuse to be 13.8? Well, it's longer than the leg that they gave me, so yes, that's reasonable. If I'd got an answer smaller than 11, it would be wrong because the hypotenuse is always longer. Okay, so once again, the steps that I took. I labeled the side that I had, 11, and the side they wanted. You're going to label them opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse. So step 1, you want to label. Then step 2, you are going to write out your equation. And then step 3, you're going to solve. So you just solve using the algebra that you know. Now, what I want to tell you is that anytime, well, my goodness, I'm getting all kinds of notifications. Anytime that you have an x in the denominator, let me give you a little trick. The trick to that is just to switch these out. You can switch those out every single time if x is in the denominator. You can flip them. And we would still have the same, and then you immediately know you're going to divide. You wouldn't have to worry about writing all of that, and you'd get your right answer if you just type that in. Okay, let's look at some more. Okay, what if we had, that's example 1, let's do example 2. What if we had a triangle that looked like this? So, of course, another right triangle. Here's a x, here's a 5, and this angle in here is 50.1 degrees. Okay? Alright, so step 1, from our first example, we could see that we label what we have. So if the angle's right here, I have the side that is opposite of the angle. So this one's opposite. And then I have the side here that's right next to the angle. So that means adjacent. So I have opposite and adjacent. So what I do is I go back to my some old hippie, caught another hippie, tripping on acid. O and A. So I want to use tangent. Okay, so let's write out our equation. We know we want tangent. So the tangent of 50.1 degrees is equal to opposite. So the opposite, we don't know, it's an x. That's what we're looking for, over adjacent, which is 5. Now, take a moment and look at what we have here. We are solving for x. X is being divided by 5. So just think basic. How do you undo division? You multiply. So we would multiply both sides here by 5. Okay? When I multiply by 5, I will have my answer. So I will do 5 tangent 50.1. Because that was our angle, right? 5 tangent 50.1, press enter, and there's our answer. Now, if you're going to round this one up, nearest 10th, you know, the 7 makes the 9 go higher. Well, when I add 1 to 9, that makes 10, right? So when you round numbers like that, that's going to go up to 6. So x equals 6. Okay, check out another one. Example 3. Hopefully this is coming back to you. Alrighty. What if we had a triangle that looked like this? We had 10.3 over here, and immediately look, what is 10.3? No matter which angle we're given, what's across from the right angle, so this is automatically our hypotenuse. Then we have 37 degrees down here. Oh, and you can't see any of that. Hang on 1 minute. There we go. I'm a crazy woman. Okay. Alrighty. And an x right here. So it wants to know this side. Okay, so for our angles down here, let's label what we've got. Of course, we already labeled that the hypotenuse. This x is going directly diagonal from the angle. If it's going diagonal, that is the opposite. Okay, so I have O and H. O and H. So you go look at your trig ratios. O and H is right there with S. That's sine. So what that means is the sine of 37 degrees is equal to O over H, so equal to X over 10.3. Okay, now this is just like the last one. We have our number on the bottom. How do we undo division? Multiply. So we're going to multiply both sides by 10.3 to cancel that out, and that will give us our X. So 10.3 times the sine of 37. Okay, so let's look at that one. We want to round that to the nearest tenth. 1 is in the tens place, but we have a 9 there, so the 9 will make that round to 6.2. So this value right here, X, is equal to 6.2. Okay. Well, that's all there is really to finding a side. You want to, like I said, once again, you want to label. Then number 2, you're going to write your equation. And number 3, you're going to solve. How do I know what to do when I solve? If X is on top, you're just going to multiply. If X is on the bottom, you got to do that one a little bit different, like example 1. Okay, so just go with what you know. You can't have X in the bottom, so we multiply both sides by X, and then after that, to solve for that X, we divided the 11 by that cosine 37. Okay. Alright, that's it for this video. Let me know if you need some help.